So welcome to episode 158 of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. And today is August the 7th. And we will continue. Today, we're going to finish that lesson that we started a couple of weeks back during our 4th of July episode. And that is lesson 186 in the Course in Miracles. I absolutely love this book. So this is my book, but my little grandson puts stickers on it. But anyway, Jen, as I was mentioning to you, I want to make these, I want to expand my teachings. I want to make it more available. I want to start like a beginner's class of what Course in Miracles is all about and just put it out there. And I'm probably going to do that through Patreon. And it's I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's through, what do you call that? It's part of YouTube, but it's a membership site, but I'm going to do it. There's no charge for anybody who wants to do just basics Course in Miracles. And then I'm going to create other levels so that anybody can come and learn about the Course in Miracles. The time is now for us to really get clear that all of our worldly issues, all of the problems in the world is because we have lost our way. And we have lost our way. Really, truly, there are two ways we have to look at this. One is our soul chose to incarnate, have a human experience, knowing that we were going to forget the truth. But the other way that we have to look at it is that every one of us was born an innocent child, and we got indoctrinated into believing things that are not true about us. We've been lied to about what God is, told that it's outside of us, that it's on a cloud somewhere, and it's like Santa Claus decides if you're naughty or nice. We've been, different religions speak of different ways of worshiping God or what God really is or how to get to God. And the truth of the matter is God is who we are. Every one of us is an expression of God. So where is God? Inside each and every one of us. But it's not just in the humans. It's in the plants. It's in the animals. It's in the rocks. It's in the water. It's in the galaxies. It's in everything. Because God is a substance. It is an intelligent substance. Call it consciousness, call it energy. You can call it whatever you want to call it. That's part of what we need to wake up from, is that when we label it something and say, this is all that it can be, and it's outside of us, it does not allow us to cultivate the kind of relationship that we need so that we can remember that we are one. And we are one. What the heck does one mean? We keep hearing about unity and oneness and all of these things, but what does that mean? Well, it means that we all come from the same place, like children in a family that come from the same mother and father. We are all children. That makes us brothers and sisters. That makes us family, makes us one family. And the world is divided because we have been indoctrinated into believing in separation, into believing in this group and that group, and I'm from France and you're from US, and I'm American and you're not, and I'm whatever Christian and you're not. We are maturing out of that very basic survival indoctrination that we're separate and we need to protect ourselves from each other, and we need to find the ones that think alike, and then we battle the ones who don't. And that mentality is the mentality of an immature child who is all about me and protecting their toys and protecting their stuff. And if I don't have what I want, then I'm going to take it from you. So this thought way of thinking that we have operated in as humans for the past couple thousand years, more than that, of conquering and battling and fighting and divisiveness, that time had a place. I mean, it was important. There was a place and a time for that. But those of us who are maturing, basically, we're waking up to the reality that we are connected. We are brothers and sisters. When we sit with each other and we find what is common, we find what matters deep within our hearts, we then collaborate. But we can't collaborate if we don't communicate. And the systems are designed to have us not talk to each other, to just have us post memes and pictures and and divisive information, and you like it or you don't like it. And that's basically, we have been dumbed down into this mentality that there's strength by picking a side. And that's actually divisiveness. That's weakness. The strength is in moving towards what is it that we all desire. Get to the root of that conversation. And in that conversation, we discover we all want peace. We all want our children to grow up in a safe environment. We all want healthy food. We all want clean air. We all want clean water. We all want the freedom to experience life however we want to experience it. And that is why our founding fathers, which is why I started this series right on July the 3rd, right before Independence Day. This series came to me to share because it talks about, the title of lesson 186 is Salvation of the World Depends on Me. Individually, and this has been happening for forever, we are waking up. But now humanity is at the point that we have to do it collectively. Individually is the only way to wake up, but collectively, then the salvation of our brothers and sisters becomes clear. It depends on me. And it depends on me not because I'm going to go save people, but it depends on me because I become an example of the way, just as Jesus taught 2,000 years ago when he said, I am the way. I am the truth. He was telling us he found the way. And if we want to do it the easy way, we can follow his steps. Many of us have entered into the spiritual journey through the self-help movement. And in the self-help movement, there are lots of steps, lots of books, lots of teachers, lots of teachings with the 10 steps for this and the 40 steps for that and the 3 steps to this. Well, Jesus was the original self-help guy. He was telling us, these are the steps. The steps are very simple. You've got to know that you and God are one. So we've got to move out of the conditioning that says that God is outside of us. That takes time. We need to gently begin to cultivate a relationship with God. And every single person that I have ever talked to, taught, coached, when we are learning to reconnect with God, it is as if we are trying to cultivate a relationship with a parent that we fear, and not only that we fear, but that we believe abandoned us. So we are cultivating a relationship with God by changing our mind. The Course in Miracles is a course in mind training. We're retraining our mind into the truths of God. Science, many scientists have been telling us the truth of God. God is energy. The source of all that is energy. Whether you study what is his name, Carl Sagan, or you study Einstein, you will come to the place of discovering quantum physics. Quantum physics says everything is interconnected. There is no solid thing. So what is it that animates everything that appears solid? It's God. You can call it God, you can call it energy, but once those words collapse into one, once we just go to the creative source and we begin to understand, well, what created me? What am I made of? And we begin to understand that you're made of the same thing everything is made of. We're all connected. Humanity is at the place that it has to make a decision. Am I going to graduate and move into a more elegant way of being, meaning maturing? Am I going to stop being a bully and a victim on the playground like the immature middle school kids, or am I going to move into a more elegant, maybe growing up into being the high schooler, maturing into another level of behaving, of understanding, into a more clear knowingness of the truth? And here's one of the beautiful things about coming down on this journey is when we enter the path of waking up, inevitably it leads us into the knowing not only that we are one, but it leads us into the experience. Everybody has a felt experience of what God is like inside of us. We feel the aliveness. We feel the creativity. We feel the love, the connection. the desire for being in service to all that is. When we're immature, we are run by our ego, which is the mind that got programmed. And the ego is nothing more than a bunch of beliefs. And when we agree to those beliefs, then that becomes our identity, and we defend it, we protect it, because that's who we think we are. But it's always in service to the self. It's always in service to me. What do I need to do to make me better, make me more marketable, make me just more liked, make me more special? It's always about me, protecting me. Victims are protecting themselves. Bullies are protecting themselves. It is a very selfish way of being. Now, when we're moving into this new way of being, which is understanding that we're connected, we become more concerned about all of us. This is why the Course in Miracles tells us that the salvation of the world depends on us, because we care about each other. We know that the pain of another is our pain. We understand that we don't want anybody to suffer. We don't want any child to go hungry. We don't want the air to be polluted for anybody. Then we have to get out of our selfish little me mode and take off the blinders that I focus on me, I focus on my family, I focus just on a very small circle. As we expand into being a citizen of the world, we begin to realize that the mother across the world whose baby is hungry is the same pain of the mother in the world where she might be totally rich and have everything that she could possibly want, maybe, and has nannies. But when that baby starts crying because it's ready to be fed, it's the same hunger. It's the same hunger for the one who's going to get the meal from the rich mom in let's say in the Western Hemisphere, as the mom in a poor country, in a third world. It's the same hunger for that one who's not going to get the meal. When we begin to realize that we are connected, that we feel the same things, that we feel from the same place, from a deep desire to experience the life, the liberty, the happiness that God has endowed each and every one of us with, because those are not only our inalienable rights, but that is the fabric of our beingness. So as we continue to observe what's happening in the world today, and we've got the Olympics happening in France, we have unrest in the Middle East, we've got unrest in lots of other places around the world, we've got unrest in our own houses. If we begin to pay attention to what is happening, the unrest is an indicator of the unrest that is happening within ourselves. Those who are waking up are feeling this desire to connect, to be heard, to have peace. So many are just tired of the same old games. And we cannot get a different result if we keep doing the same thing. And if we listen to the ego, that's what we've been doing forever. We keep, if we really were intelligent, if we were using our intelligence, we would understand that war does not lead to peace. War perpetuates peace. We've been told that that's how we keep peace, but how can you keep peace if you're killing other people, if you're causing children to become orphans, if you're causing men and women to lose limbs or lose their lives? How can that bring about peace? Fortifying a military, fortifying a system of decimating communities, that doesn't lead to peace. When are we going to accept? War does not lead to peace. War leads to more war. So we are at a point that we've got to make peace within ourselves. The salvation of the world depends on me once I find out who I am, once I save myself, once I remove myself from the conditioning, change my mind, retrain my mind to think correctly. And that takes time. It takes 12 years, more than that, to indoctrinate a child into believing that people outside of them have power over them, that the teacher is the boss, that then the boss is the boss, that then the spouse is the boss, that we have these idols, that the media, that the government, that they are the ones who know better than we do. It takes time to retrain the mind into accepting that we are the boss of ourselves. I am the boss of me. but not from an egoic, selfish place, but from a God is inside of me, source is inside of me. And when you begin to feel the movement of that pulsing within you, you realize that it is so loving that we have to humble ourselves from this attitude of power and greed and all the things that go with service to self, and humble ourselves into, number one, learning how to love myself, becoming, because the egoic mind is about self-loathing. We don't love ourselves. That's why we look for love outside of ourselves. But when you enter into this journey of self-love, you're coming to know who you are. You're coming to appreciate your magnificence, your holiness, the absolute essence of who each and every one of us is. Magnificence. But it's not only mine, it's everybody's. So when we come to that place of knowing that that's what we're made of, then we begin to realize that that's what everybody else is made of. Not everybody remembers that, but those who are attempting to remember that, they're letting us know. They're wanting things to be different. They're asking for more sovereignty. They want to learn. They are speaking to, why is the air being polluted? Why is the water polluted? They are caring about everybody. And yes, it often starts with caring about me, caring about my family, my community. You know, I'm having another chart made, shows that as our consciousness raises, our understanding and connection to all that is also expands. There are many on this planet who have been waking up and are realizing that we're connected to everything, meaning to the universes beyond this universe, beyond this galaxy, beyond this solar system, beyond this planet, beyond this country. So there's just a beautiful movement that is taking place, and it's only going to intensify, because the more people who wake up and realize that the salvation of the world depends on us, they're expanding their light. They're calling bullshit on the bullshit. They're saying, hey, just because you're the governor, just because you're the president, just because you're the CEO, doesn't mean that you get to treat others with that disrespect that comes from one who is selfish, who is greedy, who does things in service to themselves. And we're seeing, of course, those people who are standing up to the status quo, they're the ones who get shunned. And for a long time, they were the ones who were called crazy, put into institutions, burnt at the stake, or in many cases, they're the ones who were just killed off. And somehow we accepted, oh, okay, that happened. But right now, there are so many who are using their voice to speak for the collective, and they are being ostracized. They are being shunned. They are being, I forget what all the terminology is, because I really have been unplugging from that world for a while now, but they're censored. They're put off onto the sides, called crazy, labeled insane, weird, whatever. Well, the thing is that if we would take the time to listen to one another, we would find out that the crazy ones, the weird ones, the ones who are being censored, literally know something that the rest of us need to hear, because there is something that is happening. As more of us wake up to the truth of who we are, we don't want to be controlled. We don't want to be ruled. We don't want to be told what we're supposed to do with our bodies. We don't want to be told what to put, what poisons to put in our bodies, whether it's food or water or medical. We want to make decisions based on how we are inspired from within. And that is actually what is being censored, is those who are speaking for the awareness of the power within to know intuitively what is best for us. Because when we connect to the source within us, it only wants goodness. This is a source of life. It's a source of well-being. It's a source of joy. It's a source of happiness. It's a source of peace. That source, once we connect to it, does not guide us to do things that are destructive. It guides us to do things that are always in service to the expansion of that which is good and holy and beautiful and healthy and wonderful within us. So as we look at lesson 186, this is the lesson that we've been looking at for a couple of weeks now. Salvation of the world depends on me. The first sentence, the first couple of sentences says, here is a statement that will one day take all arrogance away from every mind. When every one of us begins to realize how important we are to the salvation of the world. And salvation, if you look at that as a Christian term, for some people, that might mean to become a monk or a nun or something like that. That's not what this is about. Salvation means to free our souls, to spare ourselves the suffering that we have become accustomed to. So when we listen to something like this is a statement that will one day take all arrogance away from every mind. We have to accept that we are that important. We truly are important in the plan to save the entire world. So we have to move out of our selfish little, just do what is important to me, and realize that we're important to the collective. Begin to remind ourselves that we came here, we incarnated on a mission. And that mission is going to look different for everybody. But it starts with loving ourselves enough to recognize that we only want to feel love and joy and peace. That means we do the work of stopping the judgments, the egoic blaming others, shaming others, and shaming ourselves, blaming ourselves. So we have to go through a process of training our mind out of these low frequency beliefs of shame and guilt and apathy and grief and fear and blaming and this list is a lot more extensive because it goes into all of the emotions. And we have so many emotions, despair and hopelessness and doubt and worry and denial and disappointment and aggressiveness and all of those things. We have to work through those. We've got to purge our mind of those low vibrations. And so we've got to do the work of healing. We've got to come inside and look at every single thing. Every irritation is an invitation to see how we got constricted inside and became so small and so dense. So when we realize the salvation of the world depends on me, how can that be? I'm just a poor little victim. I'm just a poor little tyrant over here. Well, the world needs to see those of us, every single one of us, who climbs out of that egoic hole of unconsciousness and rises out of that triumphant. Joseph Campbell showed us the hero's journey. This is a hero's journey, a heroine's journey. We all have to go through the process of facing the demons within, of facing the insecurities within, the lies within, and emerge out of that aware, knowing, completely confident. This is where the arrogance goes away and humility comes in. Completely confident that we are powerful creators, that our light is meant to be shined, not to be shunned, not to be hidden, not to put a bushel over our light and hide it, but our light is meant to be shined, shine all over the place. And what that means is we operate with such certainty, such confidence that we don't take anything. We stop being selfish, service to self people. We become service to others, means we allow our light to illuminate the way. And then we become examples. How does she navigate that divorce? How does she navigate the death of a spouse or the death of a parent or the death of a child? How did that one navigate the loss of everything because of that hurricane? How did that one navigate the loss of a job because of a collapse? How did this one manage to be so gentle and so peaceful and so generous in the midst of the financial collapse? When we become clear of who we are, we move through stages that are human experiences with grace, with clarity, with peace, without blaming anybody, without just feeling totally, completely like we can't live our lives anymore because that one is gone or I lost that job. But rather we know that the ending is an opportunity for a beginning. There is a hopefulness. There is an expectation of things becoming better because we are expanding. We are creators of our reality. So we know that whatever goes away has to leave because it creates an opening for something else. And when we operate in that way, then we absolutely know that life is meant to be fun and that things are unfolding in a very natural way as they do in nature for a reason. But we have been conditioned to suffer when we lose the job, to suffer when we lose a loved one, to suffer when we lose our home, as if what got taken away now we're nobody because this thing is gone. No, that thing is gone because it's meant to leave. That thing is not there because you're meant to move to another level. And those who are waking up are realizing that we have to face our attachments to external things. Nothing external is going to help you be all that you are supposed to be. As a matter of fact, external things distract us from being all that we're supposed to be. Now, what happens is one who wakes up, one who knows the truth of who we are, when they are blessed with abundance, when they're blessed with a house with many rooms in it, they willingly, wantingly, I don't know if that's a word, they want to share it. There's a desire to share because, as the Course in Miracles teaches us, you wouldn't want to hold on to something and not give it to a brother or a sister because that's fear. You want to share. In giving, we receive. So when we create a way of being that is of sharing, then what you have to share multiplies. It just magnifies because the universe realizes, oh, there's one who is sharing, who is giving. And I'm not talking about going around giving your money away. Of course, you can do that, but you're giving of your time, you're giving of your presence, you're giving of your joy, you're giving of your wisdom, you're giving of your smiles. You're extending the kingdom through giving high frequency, giving away the high frequency essence that is part of who you are. And when you're happy, you are truly in humility because that's what it says here. Here is the thought of true humility, which holds no function as your own, but that which has been given to you. When you go down this path of discovering, how can the salvation of the world depend on me? And you realize because you are the bringer of all that is good. I am here. I moved to Colorado a year and a half ago so that I could sit with my new teachers, and they are my grandchildren. They were born totally, completely loving. And I look at my little granddaughter, Ellie, always smiling. It's just so beautiful. Yes, she has her moments when she's hungry, when she's got a poopy diaper, or when she needs to go to sleep and she gets cranky. I do too. But when she is completely, when the body's needs are taken care of, there is nothing but smiles coming from that child. There's nothing but giggles. There's nothing but curiosity and a sense of wonder. All things beautiful. That's what we bring to the planet. That's why we were told 2,000 years ago, you must become like a little child. So here, when we realize that to become humble means to truly accept that we are here as bringers of all that is good, the goodness of the world comes inside each and every one of us. We are the bringers. We are the package that delivers that in the form of a newborn child. But those newborn children who come in expanding, all expanded, sharing, they get indoctrinated. We got indoctrinated and got lowered and lowered and lowered in consciousness until we were just thinking about me. So selfishly oriented. That's why we all have to go through a dark night of the soul, which is really the dark years of the ego, where we see all of the places in which we have become fearful and return ourselves to the place where we become loving again, where we begin to care, and not only about how we feel, but care about all of humanity. So the Course tells us that as we humble ourselves and we begin to accept the role that's been given to us, then we stop fighting that function. That is not about what I can give, but it's about what I can give. Because you have to be full to fill the cup of another. So you realize that you got to come back to the well and fill it up. And how do you fill it up? You go to the source. How does the source fills it up? By knowing what the source is. By allowing yourself to realize that you are creative, you are loving, you are kind, you are infinitely abundant because you're eternal. There is no end to all that can be experienced, all that you can do, all that can be shared and extended. So what keeps us from knowing that? The mind gets conditioned. It just got trained out of knowing the truth of who we are. So it says that we need to move through the pride of the ego. Right here, pride. There is an egoic pride where we just, again, what have I achieved? But we got to turn that around because there's the dark side and the light side to it. The dark side to pride is it's all about me. The light side to pride is pride that it is about me. I am the bringer of the reality. I am the bringer of the light. So what can I get? I need more light. I need more stuff. No, I am the source of it. And that pride, those two sides of the same coin have to be looked at within ourselves. When we operate in the negative pride, we are slipping down. When we connect to that pridefulness that says, I am going to accept the role, the function that God has given me. I'm going to accept that we're all equal. That's the pride that helps us ascend. So we have to understand the mechanics of pride because everything is used for the greater good or for selfish reasons. This is why when you're looking at idols out there in the form of politicians or in the form of movie stars, in the form of doctors or scientists or whatever, there are two sides to everything. There's a Jekyll and a Mr. Hyde. There is a dark side and a light side. Are they operating 80% of their dark side and 20% of their light? Yeah, you're going to see a couple of nice things that they do. But then if you do some research, you see that they've done a lot of selfish things. Or are they operating 80% of their light and 20% of their ego? 80% they're in service to humanity. They're wanting to do things selflessly. They are completely committed to service for the greater good, but they still have an ego. There's still a part of them that maybe in younger years, maybe still today, they slip up because they have a human side. So when we are moving in this direction of wanting the greater good for all, we have to enter into conversations with one another so we can see, are you coming more from the light? Are you coming more from the darkness? Are you coming from your egoic pride? What's in it for me? Or are you coming from your spiritual pride, your spirit pride? You know that you have a mission from God and you're here to do it. Kind of like the Blues Brothers, they were on a mission from God and they were not afraid to do whatever it is that they did. Granted, some of that was crazy, but it was still, there's an awareness that we have a mission that we're here to accomplish. When it comes from the light side and within us, when it comes from God, it's for the greater good. When it comes from the ego, which also is on a mission, it's always for me. This is why we have to follow the money to understand those who operate in greed. But people get stuck on the externals and don't go deeper into connecting. Where are they operating from? Because humanity is making big decisions. We're in the midst of a shift in consciousness. And we have to understand, are we going to continue to idolize people who service themselves? Sure, they may say things that are really nice and sound, elaborate and beautiful and maybe eloquent and maybe poetic, but is it coming from a place of service to self? Which means that this destruction of the world is going to depend on them. Or are they coming from a place that is in service to all, which means the salvation of the world depends on them. And they're here in service. Now, not that there are saviors outside of us, but we need to understand where are people coming from, because we are being moved to align with either higher frequency or align with lower frequencies, because there is a shift taking place and we are going to be watching the world split into two, high frequency, low frequency. Why? Because we're moving out of low grade, the grade school, the third dimensional way of thinking, the training wheels of humans have to be dropped unless you are comfortable with that. And then there's going to be those who are moving into doing things that are for the greater good. These are people who put their money where their mouth is. They are those who don't care that they're being censored. They're sharing truth. They don't care that the FDA says that's not an approved product. If it's going to heal people, they're going to get it out to people. There is a service to extending that which is natural within all of us. And then there is a service of doing what makes me more money or keeps me safe. These people are based on fear, seeking for safety outside of themselves. Somebody keep me safe. And these are freedom-seeking beings that don't care. I mean, they are truly, and when I say we are truly realizing that the most important thing is freedom. And if it means that you give up your life, that's okay, because you know you're not a body, you're free. If you study the Course in Miracles, you understand that Jesus explained through the crucifixion that he was not a body. He was this eternal being that 2,000 years later is giving us the same information that he was trying to give us back then, that got corrupted, that God used against us to keep us small-minded. And now we get these teachings that are telling us the same thing, but explaining it so that our mind that is more has matured over the 2,000 years since the Jesus first came to give us those teachings. It's taken us 2,000 years to be able to sit with these teachings and take them in and not be afraid that the government's going to come and behead us because we're believing the teachings of Christ. So we have an opportunity through these lessons to come to know who we truly are. So the lesson continues to tell us that there is one way and only one way to be released from the imprisonment that our plan, the ego's plan, that attempts to prove the false is true. To end that, we've got to stop doing things that keep proving to us that we are stuck in a pattern of egoic pride, of egoic conditioning. We need to step out of that, and that takes courage. That's the next thing that comes after the pride. You've got to decide, I'm going to do God's work, and humble ourselves enough to do God's work. And then we have to have the courage to do it. And of course, those people with courage to go against the grain meet a lot of chastising, but that's okay, because they're not here to caring about what other people think. They're caring about what God knows, what God thinks, what they believe is true, and they're going to do it anyways, regardless of the consequences, because they know that they're eternal and they're no longer in fear that they're going to be hurt, that they're no longer in fear that they're going to be punished. And we see so many people who end up in jail for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and come out and go, that's okay. I needed to sit there, so I had more time with God, but this is the truth. I believed it then, I believe it now. How many of us really can stand in the conviction that we could say, give me liberty or give me death, that I'm going to do whatever it takes for freedom, because I know that I am eternal. So the fears are no longer there. We're moving to, as a society, to finding the voice that allows people to stand up for what is right for them, which in turn is right for all beings. Meaning it's for the greater good of all, because it's the salvation of the world depends on us. So as we kept moving through this, we continue to see that it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of strength to be humble enough to do what God intends for each and every one of us to do. That takes a lot of courage. And as we begin to make those choices to be in service to the truth, because we're feeling it within ourselves, we begin to see, as it calls it, a lovely contrast, because we begin to see that we are just as certain, as it says, certain as the sun's return each morning to dispel the night. You begin to realize that when you are in service to the truth that is waking up within you, it is a absolutely beautiful contrast, because you feel peace, you feel certainty, you feel clarity, you're attracted to people who are all in service to the greater good. And it's a big contrast from the selfish world, from the, gossiping at the water cooler, from the picking one side and shunning other people, and low frequency vibes of judgment and shaming and guilting. Yuck. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you realize it's time to take off the training wheels, you're ready to take off. This does not appeal to you anymore. When I took off my training wheels, for me, when I took them off my kids' bikes, none of us ever said, oh my God, I can't wait to get those training wheels back on. When we took those training wheels off, we were set free. We could go further. We could go on different terrains that we couldn't with the training wheels. But the training wheels were important. They were necessary at that time. But when you understand the evolution of humanity, you understand the evolution of consciousness, you understand that there is an expansion that happens as you move into maturity. You don't miss what you did as a third grader. You're ready to move on to the more elegant teachings and the more expanded ways of being that come with the next grades that we move on to. But humanity hasn't been taught that we are on an evolutionary path. We think that we are the smartest species and that's it. No, we're the dumbest species when we operate from that low frequency. That the animals are more elegant, the plants are more elegant. So we have an opportunity to wake up and become more like the creative source that we see reflected in nature. That's why we walk into nature and we feel at peace, because it is living from the truth of what it is in service to humanity. The trees give us their shade. The fruit-bearing trees give us food to eat. The grass feeds the animals. There is a symbiotic, there's just a beautiful process of all serving all. So back to the course. Let's get into where we left off. This is paragraph 12. Do as God's voice directs. Simple statement. Do as God's voice directs. But you don't want to do as God's voice directs when you're angry at God, when you're afraid of God, when you don't even know God. This is a journey of having to come to know God. And then you discover, my God, in lovely contrast, God is nothing but goodness. It just, every time that I have those encounters with the source within me, that I'm overtaken with the sheer beauty, the loveliness, the goodness of that which is in me that wants to be shared. I want to do as God's voice directs, because it always, without fail, is attempting to take me to a more beautiful place. It's attempting to expand me into a more joyful experience. It's attempting to move me into a more creative possibility. Always. It never pulls me into shrinking. That was my ego. The source, the voice of God is always expanding me in such beautiful ways. So do as God's voice directs. That's easy for me. I've humbled myself enough to, I only want to do what God tells me to do. Yes, that's the boss of me because it's in me. And if it asks a thing of you which seems impossible, remember who it is that asks and who would make denial. Then consider this, which is more likely to be right, the voice that speaks for the creator of all things, who knows all things exactly as they are, or a distorted image of yourself, confused, bewildered, inconsistent, and unsure of everything. Do I want to listen to the voice of ego that's always in fear? Or do I want to listen to the voice of God that is always clear, certain? And as the creator of all things, don't you think it can open the path for me? If it's guiding me, if it's directing me, if it wants to, through me, experience something, whatever it is, don't you think it's going to make way for it? If God wanted a galaxy, it made way for it. If God wanted a planet with nature and plants and trees, it created it. This is why we have to mature to think like God and stop thinking like the ego, which is quite immature and selfish and greedy and destructive. Let not its voice direct you, meaning the ego. Let not that inconsistent, distorted voice. Hear instead a certain voice which tells you of a function given you by your Creator, who remembers you and urges that you now remember him. Course in Miracles is very clear. It uses him because it just had to pick a language, because the people who are studying this are used to him, the Father. This is a course designed, written in Christian language, because it's a big population and it's attempting to heal the mind of so many people who've been taught the wrong things about God, because Christianity has projected an image of the dysfunctional human father on God. And Course in Miracles is attempting to change that image, to bring it back to a loving presence, like a loving father. And the loving father we all wish we had, the loving father we know some are. But ultimately, it's not just him, it's him, her, it's energy. It is all that is. Then the next paragraph says, paragraph 13, his gentle voice is calling from the known to the unknowing. We know the world of the ego. We're being called to the unknown. We know the world of third grade when we're in third grade. We're being called to the unknown in fourth and fifth and sixth and higher grades. We get too comfortable protecting the known. This is why so many of us lose everything on this journey to wake up, because we have to lose attachments. We got to let go of what we think keeps us safe, because it keeps us in prison. When your mind is ready to be free, you've got to want to know the unknown. You've got to open up the channels to communicating with that which is beyond. That's why this is a progression. Out of ourselves is how we return to ourselves. He would comfort you, although he knows no sorrow. Yeah, because God doesn't know pain and suffering. That's a human-made construct. He would make a restitution, though he is complete, a gift to you, although he knows that you have everything already. See, God is an energy. God knows that if we learn how to use energy, we can manifest anything. There would be absolutely no lack, because everything is a direct effect of a cause within the mind. We have to think it. We have to believe it to see it. And we are now being taught, you've got to stop doing what you've been indoctrinated with. You see it, then you believe it. We've got to shift to believing so that we can begin to see. But we are only going to be able to see utilizing the ability that's already within us if it's for the greater good of all. Selfishness cannot move into courage. Only the courageous are operating from a pride that is beyond themselves, that they know that what they're doing is for a greater purpose. Only those who are operating for themselves, they really truly don't have courage. They have to use force. Do you think these politicians that send people, other women's spouses or their sons or the children, do you think that they have any kind of courage? Do you think it takes courage to go to war? No, it doesn't. It just takes money and power to send somebody else's children to war, to decide that you go kill those people's children, and to not even care what happens to those families. Look at the veterans of this country, of any country, not taken care of. No, that's not courage. That is absolute cowardice. Only because they're in positions of power do then use those resources to hurt others. When you're in service to self, you have to have the courage to say no more wars. You have to be a leader that says, no, we're going to do it a different way. And we've seen leaders like that. What happens to some of them? They get assassinated. Look at Kennedy wanting to end the military-industrial complex that was seen and that it was known. So what happens to one who doesn't want to have war? Well, it's easy to see those courageous beings are the ones that are not, they're anybody who is courageous and wants to change the status quo, they're an inconvenience to the status quo. So here we are being invited to connect with the source that knows everything already. He has thoughts which answer every need his son perceives, although he sees them not. For love must give, and what is given in his name takes on the form most useful in a world of form. When we begin to listen to God, inspire us to create a new song, to create a new medicine, something that is helpful, to come up with ways to inspire others. All of that is in this physical world of form, coming from the formlessness. We need to connect to the unknown. That is where all new things will come from, because they haven't been before. And we are not going to move into a more elegant world if we keep doing the same old things again. So we've got to open up our mind. We've got to be willing to connect to something beyond us. But that beyond us cannot be outside of us. It has to be within us, moving through us. We become the conduits. We become the vessels. We become the instruments that get used in this new plan. But you have to be willing to participate in it. You have to take pride that you have a very big job. Your role as the savior of the world is important, and you've got to own it. Then it goes on to say, these are the forms which never can deceive, because they come from formlessness itself. Forgiveness is an earthly form of love, which as it is in heaven has no form. God doesn't need to forgive us, because God knows that we're just energy. We are, yes, we're stuck in a bubble of suffering, but it's because we want to be there. Nobody tells us that we have to listen to the ego. Nobody tells us there is no power that is saying you are bound for the rest of your life into suffering. We choose to incarnate and experience suffering so we can have the lovely contrast of, no, I don't want that anymore. I used to be selfish. I don't want that anymore. I used to be a victim. I don't want that anymore. I used to be a bully. I don't want that anymore. I have the contrast. Over here, it feels so much better. It feels so much better within this body vessel to be a gentle, loving, kind, certain, clear being that knows where my truth comes from. It doesn't come from Lina's ego. It comes from Lina doing the will of God. Because I found out that the will of God was way better, higher frequency, way more delicious than the will of my ego. But it took me many, many years to see the ego and to see God, and to then be able to, through the contrast, shift and lift into that which felt better. Yet what is needed here is given here as it is needed. In this form, you can fulfill your function even here. Although what love will mean to you when formlessness has been restored to you is greater still. We cannot understand the goodness, the happiness, the joy, the absolutely amazing life that we will all get to experience until we begin to live that way. But we have to get to that first. That means we've got to do the work of moving out of these frequencies, and it takes time. This is directly out of the book, Power versus Force. And if you haven't read that book, I highly recommend it. Dr. David Hawkins went through his own awakening. I went through my own awakening, and this made perfect sense because I had to move through those levels of consciousness. Normally, it takes, a lifetime to move 20 degrees, 20 points, according to this chart of 0 to 1,000. But in this lifetime, many of us can jump 100, 200 points, move into higher levels, at the very least to move to the place of courage. And courage is a frequency of the heart. Her is a French word. Her, heart, courage. We have to have the courage to come back to our hearts. That's a frequency of 200. Most of humanity is operating 20, 30, 40, 50. And selfish and greedy and fear-based. To get to courage, to come to the heart, that requires a willingness to really question your beliefs, to question what you think is reality, to question this world of form that you think is real, but instead dial it back. Where did this come from? Where did I come from? Where does everything come from? And have your own relationship with the Creator, not based on this religion or that religion, this book or that book, all made out of pride from the ego. Then the final couple sentences here. Salvation of the world depends on you who can forgive. Such is your function here. You know, the Course in Miracles teaches forgiveness, and the forgiveness that it teaches is so simple. We're forgiving ourselves for forgetting we're not an ego. We're forgiving ourselves for forgetting that we, like every little newborn child, we were born bringers of love and light. We're forgiving ourselves for forgetting the truth of who we are. We're forgiving ourselves for believing lies and making them true. It's a very gentle process, but it requires training the mind to think differently. We have to shift our beliefs. We have to change our mind from the, powers outside of me to powers inside of me. That takes time. Change our mind from all these idols, all these people can keep me safe. No, your safety comes only from finding the source within. We have to change our mind about, oh, I got to take care of me and my family, to know the salvation of the world depends on me. We have a big function to fulfill because we were created to fulfill it. We were created with every ability to fulfill that mission, but we can't find that courage to connect with that until we do the work to see how we are denying it, how we disconnected from it, how we got conditioned out of it. This is not for the faint of heart. This requires an incredible amount of internal fortitude, and we fall down many times. This is a journey that takes a long time, but right now, energetically, we are being assisted. I'm coaching people that in 4 years, they've accomplished what some people that have coached for 10 years have accomplished. And it's amazing how in 3 to 4 years, they come to the place that they are fully awake, where some other people that have been on this journey for decades are not fully awake. They're awakening, but they're not fully awake because the energies right now are supporting anybody who is willing to look at the truth that you are the creator of your reality. If you don't like judgment, if you don't like how you feel when you judge others, if you don't like how you feel when you are in fear, if you don't like how you feel when you think somebody else has power over you, if you don't like how that feels, then that's an indicator that you are believing things that are not accurate. When you believe the truth that I am the creator of my reality, that I am loving, that I don't need anything outside of me to be happy, that I don't need anybody to change for me to be okay, that I don't need a politician, a certain person to get elected for me to feel safe, then you will feel a confidence, a certainty, a clarity, a peace that passes all understanding. The human egoic mind cannot understand that peace. It thinks that the peace that it gets, you got to buy it and acquire it and do things to get it. But this is a letting go of what you thought you knew to come to the unknown where you will know the truth. It's a paradox. My gosh, what a beautiful paradox it is. So we have completed this lesson. We'll go back to finishing next Wednesday. We'll go back to where we were before, which was in the text, and continue that, because the teachings of the Course, I mean, we can spend a lifetime going over these things. It's so rich, it's so powerful, it's so amazing, but you have to come with the willingness to override your mind's opinion about it and allow your heart to feel the truth that emanates. All of these letters are imbued with a high frequency that can only be felt as truth, as permission to be all that you can be, if you sit and accept that these words are true. So when we are told, do as God's voice directs, you will go, yeah, because that voice only leads us to that which is good and holy and beautiful and magnificent and truly ultimate freedom. Thank you for being here today. If you like this, share it with others. And, I'm here just to help make the Course in Miracles as simple to understand, as practical to apply into our lives as can be, because my life has been transformed through these teachings, and I just love sharing them. That's my mission, and I'm okay. I'm sticking to that because it's a lot of fun. So I'm going to make these teachings a lot more available. I'm coming up with something that I'll share more of later. August 31st, I had some of my students ask me to put on a shift and lift workshop. It's an online workshop where we are going to dive in with the simple tools of shift and lift, the 4 steps to shift our mind and to move from fear to love. So I'm going to be, I'll share with those whose information I have. I'll share that. I'm going to put it in my those who are subscribed to my newsletter. I haven't done a newsletter since I moved to Colorado because I've been so busy just acclimating to my gurus, my teachers. I spend so much time with my grandchildren, helping my daughter because she and her husband, they've got 2 businesses, and it's a lot of work. It's part of what they signed up for, to have these 2 beautiful babies. And I love that I get to be here and I get to witness these beings being raised by more conscious parents than I was. So it's really absolutely amazing. But anyways, August 31st, and the class is very small because it's a lot of one-on-one coaching, and it's an all-day thing. It's 10 to 5 Eastern time. And we're just going to dive in. We're going to use the course, but we're going to go through the circle, the hero's journey, if you will, what I call the soul journey, to see the steps that we have to go through to shift from ego and lift into our God essence. So if you want more information on that, send me a text, let me know, and I'll send you info. But I can't thank you enough for being willing and courageous enough to listen to these messages. And hopefully you feel within you that it is your role to become the savior of the world. Salvation of the world depends on you. All right, everybody. Yes, Jen. Oh, Jen, it's amazing. I'll send it to you. Maybe it's some people who may want to participate. I only have a few more spots left, so it won't take long to fill it up. Love you guys.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye, sweetie. Thank you.
Bye. It's good to see you. Bye.